Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different.
Yeah.
Usually, we look at the world around us, technology, history, the tangible stuff you can touch and measure.
The physical.
Exactly. But for this deep dive, we're looking inward. And I don't just mean like introspection or mindfulness.
Yeah.
I mean, we are going to look at the mechanics of the reality you experience when you close your eyes.
It's a huge shift in perspective, isn't it? We're so used to treating dreams as this ephemeral secondary thing. Oh, it was just a dream.
Right. Forget about it.
But the material we're digging into today argues the exact opposite. It argues that the dream state is concrete, mechanical, and just an essential part of your existence.
And to really get there, I think we need to set the scene. I want to anchor us in a very specific moment in time.
Okay.
It's Wednesday, July 28, 1965. It's about 9 o'clock at night. We're in Elmira, New York.
So a hot, probably humid summer night?
Exactly that. We're in a small, quiet back room. And sitting in a chair is Jane Roberts. Now, for anyone who might be new to this specific niche of metaphysical history, Jane Roberts is a writer, a poet, but right now she's acting as a medium.
Right.
She has her eyes closed, she's speaking, but the voice. It isn't her normal speaking voice. It's deeper, slower, very deliberate. She is channeling the entity known as Seth.
And the atmosphere of this session in particular, this is session 173, it's really worth noting. Usually Seth is described as this high-energy presence.
Oh, yeah, he paces, he booms.
He projects his voice, paces around the room, a very active teacher. But tonight, July 28th, the vibe is, it's just different.
It's quiet. It's almost sleepy, you could say. And there's this funny little moment right at the top of the session where Seth actually addresses this. He basically says, look, we've been working hard.
Right. He says, we will have a slow session. He explains that there has been a high period of psychic activity recently. They've been pushing Jane's physical system pretty hard with all the channeling.
So he announces a vacation pace.
A vacation pace.
Yeah. I found that just incredibly humanizing for, an interdimensional consciousness. The idea that even a non-physical entity believes in work-life balance.
He literally says, it is only fair that I allow you to rest now and then.
It's funny, but it also gives us a clue about the mechanics of this whole thing, right? It's not magic, it's energy. It takes a real toll on the physical body of the medium.
Seth acknowledges that the energy exchange is taxing. He even says, very seldom will we have vacations as such, unless, of course, you request them. So he dials it down. But, and this is the key for you listening, just because Seth is going slow doesn't mean the content is light.
Oh, not at all. Not even close. In fact, he uses this quiet session to drop some of the most, reality-shattering concepts about the nature of the human psyche.
It's often the quiet sessions that have the most depth, When all the theatrics are dialed back, the philosophy gets really, really dense.
Okay, so before we start unpacking all that, we need to do our due diligence. The source material for this deep dive is session 173 of the early sessions, book 4 of the Seth Material.
And as our standard disclaimer, this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms, and it is for educational purposes. We're here to explore the architecture of these ideas, to see how they hold up and what they imply, not to preach them as religious truth.
So let's get to the core hook, the central mystery of session 173. Everyone listening right now has dreamed, you probably dreamed last night, even if you don't remember it. The prevailing scientific view, or at least the materialist view, is that dreams are basically mental garbage disposal.
Right. The brain's just filing memories, firing off some random neurons, processing the day's anxiety. It's just noise. A byproduct of a biological machine cooling down for the night.
Seth says, absolutely not. He argues that the dream reality is not only valid, but in some ways it's more real, or at least more foundational, than the physical world we're sitting in right now.
And what's the part that gave you a chill?
The part that really gave me a bit of a chill when I was reading the notes, it's what he says about the other people in your dreams.
Ah, the dream characters.
Yes. Seth suggests that the characters you interact with in your dreams, well, they might be more alive than you were comfortable admitting.
That is the concept that really forces you to reevaluate your own responsibility as like a sentient being. But we can't just jump to the scary stuff.
No, you're right.
We have to build the foundation the way Seth does. We have to start with his definition of what a personality actually is.
Okay, let's do it. Segment 1, the feedback loop of personality. Seth throws this term out there right away. Energy, gestalts.
Gestalt. It's a German word that, roughly means shape or form. But in psychology, and especially in this context, it means a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts.
So you're not a static thing.
Exactly. Seth doesn't see your personality as a rock. You're more like a weather system. You're a collection of energies that are constantly moving, changing, and interacting with each other.
And he describes this interaction as a loop.
It's a cycle of creation and feedback. He says the personality creates the dream. That's step one.
Simple enough.
Then the dream is experienced by the self. That's step two. And here's the crucial part, the bit that just shatters the materialist model. That experience changes the personality.
Okay, wait. I want to drill down on this. Because usually I think of a dream as something I watch. Like a movie. I watch the movie, the movie ends, I walk out of the theater, and I'm the same person I was when I walked in. Maybe a little entertained or a little scared, but I haven't, fundamentally changed.
Seth totally disputes that. He uses a very practical analogy to physical life. Imagine you go on vacation to Hawaii.
Well,
Or, imagine you get into a minor car accident on your way to work. Those are physical events. They happen, you react to them emotionally, chemically, and because of that reaction, you are slightly changed. You now have a memory of Hawaii, or you now have a fear of that specific intersection.
right. The event molded me. It became part of me.
Seth argues that internal event streams do the exact same thing. He says, as the personality is molded by his exterior circumstances, so is he also molded by the dreams that he creates.
So the brain, or the core self, as he calls it, doesn't distinguish between I crashed my car in real life and I crashed my car in a dream.
Well, the ego distinguishes. Your waking ego says, phew, that was just a dream, thank God.
Right.
But Seth is talking about the whole self, or the basic core of the personality. And on that core level of your consciousness, experience is experience, data is data. It doesn't care if the sensory input came from your physical eyes or your inner vision.
I have the quote right here, and I think we need to read it verbatim because it's so definitive.
Go for it.
Seth says, a particularly vivid dream is every bit as real to the inner self as a vivid psychological experience that occurs within the waking state.
Every bit is real. I mean, that's the key. The inner self records the dream as a valid historical event in your personal history. It's in the file.
This leads to a really provocative idea that Seth touches on next. If the dream world is real to the inner self, how does the inner self view the physical world?
And this is where Seth gets a little cheeky. He just flips our entire worldview completely upside down.
Yeah, he does.
We walk around thinking physical reality is the main event, it's the Super Bowl, it's the only thing that really matters. Dreams are just the intermission or the commercials.
Right.
Seth says the physical universe is relatively as unimportant to the inner self as the dream universe appears to be to the egotistical self.
That's a staggering statement.
Yeah.
Relatively unimportant.
It's a perfect mirror image. The ego looks at dreams and just sees shadows and nonsense. The inner self looks at physical life and sees, well, maybe not nonsense, but certainly a very limited, very rigid, slow-moving constraint.
So to the inner self, the physical world is the small room.
And the dream world is the big world, the open territory.
It implies that we are essentially living in an inversion. We identify with the ego, so we think this physical reality is it. This is the whole show. But if we identified with the inner self, we'd see that the real action, the real heavy lifting of existence, might actually be happening while we're asleep.
That is exactly where he takes the argument next. Because if the dream world is real and if it molds the personality, then it must have a function. It's not just random, it's doing work.
Which brings us to segment 2, dreams as problem solvers.
Yeah, and this is where the session becomes really practical for anyone interested in psychology or even psychosomatic medicine. Seth introduces the mechanics of why we dream.
He talks about something called impeding actions. Can you break that down?
Sure. In Seth's view, the personality is an energy system. It has impulses, it has drives. It needs to perform certain actions to maintain its balance. But, we live in a physical world with rules, laws, social norms, and our own fears. So often we block those actions.
We repress them.
We repress them, we hold them back, and that creates a blockage, an impeding action. But energy can't be destroyed, right? You learned that in high school physics. If you block the energy, it has to go somewhere.
So where does it go?
Ideally, it goes into the dream state. Seth calls the dream state a safety valve. It's a psychological space where you can perform the actions that you are too afraid or too restricted to perform in the physical world.
And if you don't? If you block it in the physical world and you block it in the dream world?
That's the danger zone. Seth is very, very clear on this. He says, when this solution fails, the impeding action will then materialize as a physical illness or as an undesirable psychological condition.
Wow, that is a heavy concept. An illness is a result of a failed dream.
Or a result of a personality that was just too rigid to let the dream do its work. The illness becomes the only remaining outlet for that trapped energy. It's the last resort of the whole system to express itself.
Seth gives a really specific, very relatable example in this session. He talks about a hypothetical personality. Let's just call him Bob.
Right, the Bob scenario. This is a perfect illustration of the mechanism. So you have Bob. In his waking life, Bob is a very independent guy. Maybe he was raised to believe that men don't cry, men don't ask for help. He's a rock. He never, ever leans on anyone.
But, like all humans, he has a fundamental psychological need to be cared for sometimes. He has a dependency need.
Exactly. The need exists, whether his ego admits it or not. So this energy of, I need to be held, I need to be helped, is just building up inside him. And Bob suppresses it in waking life. He refuses to ask for help.
So the pressure cooks.
The pressure cooks. And now, Bob goes to sleep, his inner self takes over. It sees this massive buildup of dependency energy, and it says, okay, we need to release this, or Bob is going to have a stroke.
So it constructs a dream.
It constructs a dream.
What happens in the dream?
Well, in the dream, Bob plays a role that allows him to be dependent. Maybe he dreams he's a small child again. Maybe he dreams he's sick and being nursed back to health by some loving figure. Maybe he dreams he's lost and someone comes and rescues him.
So he acts out the very thing he forbids himself to do when he's awake.
Yes. And in doing so, Seth says, the action is satisfied, the energy is discharged, the psychological balance is restored, but wakes up, he feels refreshed. He goes back to being the strong, independent guy, but the pressure is gone. He doesn't develop an ulcer. He doesn't get a migraine.
Here's a part of that example that I found really fascinating, though. Seth says Bob probably won't remember the dream.
Correct. He says the individual would not, of course, as a rule, remember such a dream on a conscious level.
Why not? I mean, if the dream just saved his health, wouldn't it be good for him to know?
Well, think about Bob's ego. His entire self-image is, I am strong, I am independent. If he woke up with a vivid memory of crying like a baby in a dream, his ego would be threatened.
He'd feel shame.
He might feel shame. He might double down on his rigidity to compensate.
So the amnesia is actually a protection mechanism.
It's a kindness, really. It allows the therapy to happen without the patient fighting it. The inner self solves the problem backstage. The curtain stays down. Bob just gets the benefit of the healing without the embarrassment of the process.
It makes you wonder how many times our sanity has been saved by a dream we have absolutely no memory of.
Seth would imply it happens constantly, every single night. We're being balanced and tuned up.
But this creates a kind of paradox for me. If Bob creates the dream, and Bob experiences the dream, but Bob, the guy I talked to at the water cooler, doesn't remember it, who's actually running the show, who is the I that's crying in the dream.
This brings us right to segment 3, the identity crisis, or rather the solution to it, the inner ego.
Right. We usually hear ego, and we think of the conscious mind, the part of me that's checking the time and worrying about taxes.
That's the outer ego or the waking ego. Seth makes a distinction between this and the inner ego. He describes the inner ego as the director of unifying activities.
So when I'm in a dream, and I still feel like me, that sense of self, that isn't my waking self.
It's a deeper layer of you. Seth says the inner ego is indeed the I of your dreams. But here's why the inner ego is superior, in a way. The waking ego is limited. It looks outward. It sees physical objects. It is largely blind to what's happening inside the psyche.
It's half blind.
Yeah, pretty much. But the inner ego, it has a more complex awareness. It looks inward at the dream world, but, and this is critical, it is also aware of physical existence.
It knows about both worlds.
It's the bridge. The inner ego knows what you did during the day, and it knows what you're doing at night. It holds the whole picture.
This leads to that really poetic concept Seth brings up about boundaries. He talks about spirals of action.
Yes. We humans, we love our boundaries. We love to say, I am awake now, now I am asleep. The dream started here, the dream ended there.
Right. When the alarm clock goes off, the dream world ceases to exist. Poof. It vanishes.
Seth says that is a total illusion. He has this beautiful rebuttal to our limited perception. He says, the self is limitless. Where your perceptions fail, boundaries seem to appear.
Where your perceptions fail, boundaries seem to appear. That is such a profound line.
It means the boundary isn't out there in reality. The boundary is in your ability to see. Just because you stop seeing the dream doesn't mean the dream stopped.
It just means you change the channel.
Exactly. He explicitly states that another portion of the self remains aware of the dream even after we wake up. The dream continues. The inner ego stays tuned in. It's like leaving a movie running in the other room. You walk into the kitchen, the physical world, but the movie, the dream, is still playing in the living room. You just aren't looking at it anymore.
Okay, so if the movie is still playing, what's happening to the actors?
And now we are arriving at segment 4. And I'll be honest, this is where this session goes from interesting psychological theory to existential crisis territory.
Dream fragments.
Dream fragments.
Usually if I dream about a stranger or my neighbor or even a monster, I assume they're props, cardboard cutouts. My brain just painted them there to fill the scene. They have no interior life.
Seth rejects that completely. He defines these characters as fragments, and he grants them something terrifying. He grants them consciousness.
I'm looking at the transcript here. Seth says, these dream personalities or fragments indeed have their own consciousness.
And he doesn't stop there. He says, they exist once you have created them. No action can be withdrawn.
No action can be withdrawn. That sounds so permanent.
It implies a responsibility we never, ever realized we had. When you dream of a person, you are essentially birthing a temporary consciousness. You grant them a spark of life. Seth says they're working out various roles, seeking various experiences, searching for solutions and gratifications.
So they aren't just acting for my benefit. They have their own agenda.
They do. They are fragments of your greater self, yes, but they've been spun off to live their own existence within that dimension. They are semi-autonomous.
And because the dream continues after I wake up.
They continue. They exist whether you are thinking of them or not.
That is just wild. It's like, imagine you write a character in a novel, and the moment you write their name, they actually pop into existence. And when you close the book to go make dinner, that character's still running around in the pages, living a life you aren't even reading.
That's a very apt analogy. And here's the really spooky interaction that Seth describes. He says they are as unaware of you as you are of them.
Wait, hold on. So the dream character doesn't know they're being dreamt by me?
Generally, no. To them, they are the center of their reality. They don't look up at the sky and see the giant dreamer. They're living their lives, dealing with their own dream problems, completely unaware that their entire existence is being sustained by your psychic energy.
Just as we are unaware that they're still running around after our alarm clock rings.
Exactly.
It really creates this picture of us as creator gods, but like absentee creator gods. We create these worlds, populate them with semi-autonomous beings, and then we just abandon them every morning.
It is a chilling thought, but it's also weirdly funny in a way. It explains the complexity of the psyche. We aren't just one person. We're a collection of fragments, constantly splitting off and exploring different realities. We populate a universe every night.
It certainly changes how you feel about bad dreams. If I create a monster in a nightmare,
that monster has to resolve its own existence in the dream reality. It has a life cycle. It has a consciousness.
Man, that is a heavy responsibility to lay on someone who just wants to get 8 hours of sleep. Hey, don't create any monsters. They'll have to live with themselves.
It is heavy. But Seth doesn't tell us this just to scare us. He tells us this to empower us. Because if we are creating these realities, we can also direct them.
Right.
And this leads us to the practical application of the session.
Okay, good. Segment 5, taking control. Because right now, based on everything you've said, I feel like I'm just flailing around in my sleep, creating accidental life forms in chaos. Seth says we can manage this.
He points out a flaw in our modern approach. Humanity has spent centuries trying to interpret dreams. You know, I lost my teeth. What does it mean? But very little effort trying to control them.
And just to clarify, he's not talking about lucid dreaming in the modern sense, is he? Where you suddenly wake up inside the dream and start flying around like Superman.
Not exactly. Lucid dreaming is about becoming conscious within the dream. Seth is talking about dream management or proper suggestion before the dream even starts. He's talking about using your conscious mind to give a work order to your inner self.
So how do we do it? What's the technique?
It's surprisingly simple, but it requires consistency. You give instructions to the self. You can say to yourself, okay, I have this problem in my waking life. I am anxious about this presentation I have to give. I have a conflict with my spouse. I want to work this out in the dream state tonight.
That's it. Just tell yourself.
The role of expectation is the key mechanic here. Seth says, upon proper suggestion, the personality will work out specific problems in the dream state. You're essentially giving the inner ego a mission objective. Tonight's mission: resolve the anxiety about the presentation.
And going back to the earlier point, even if I wake up and I don't remember the dream, if I gave the instruction, the work still gets done.
Yes, that's the beauty of it. You don't need to remember the dream to get the benefit. If the instruction is received, the fragments are deployed, the drama is acted out, the energy is released, you might just wake up feeling lighter, or the solution might pop into your head while you're making coffee.
But Seth also gives a warning here. The flip side of expectation. He calls it the vicious circle.
This is critical for anyone suffering from depression or chronic anxiety. If you go to bed feeling hopeless, if you expect to have nightmares, if you expect to fail, well, you are giving instructions too. You are directing your dream activities to reinforce those negative traits.
He says, negative dreams tend to reinforce the negative aspects of the personality.
Exactly. You create a feedback loop of misery. You feel bad, so you command your dreams to be bad. The bad dreams then mold your personality to be more fearful, so you wake up feeling worse, and then you dream worse again that night.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
But the solution is the same mechanism.
Right. You have to break the loop with conscious expectation. Even if you feel like garbage, you have to actively construct a positive expectation before you go to sleep. You have to say, tonight I will handle this. Tonight I will find a solution. Tonight I will rest.
It's the fake it till you make it approach, but for your subconscious.
It's realizing that you are the captain of the ship. You might have left the bridge for a while, but you can walk back up there and take the wheel. Seth is saying, you are the boss. Direct the dream. Use the safety valve consciously.
I love that. It makes going to bed feel less like shutting down a computer and more like logging into a simulation where you have admin privileges.
And where you have a staff of fragments just waiting for instructions.
Right. Okay, team, tonight we're working on self-esteem. Go.
Precisely. It turns sleep into an active workshop.
So as we move toward the end of the session, the vacation pace starts to wind down. Seth wraps things up.
He does. He ends the formal lecture portion and then asks for questions. And we get this rare personal glimpse into Seth himself.
Jane's husband, Rob, that's Robert Butts, who diligently recorded all these sessions by hand, he asked Seth the question. He asks, do you dream?
It's a great question. I mean, Seth doesn't have a physical body. He doesn't have a biological brain. Does an energy essence dream?
And the answer.
He says, I do dream, but not necessarily while in a sleeping state.
Which implies he doesn't sleep.
Right. Consciousness at his level doesn't need downtime like we do. He is conscious of his actions within his own psychological framework. He actually implies that humans can do this too. Be conscious of dreams while awake, but our current personality structure just can't handle it. He says we can't juggle realities with any ease.
We'd crash the car if we were watching the dream channel and the waking channel at the same time.
Exactly. We need the separation to function. We need the blackout curtains. He doesn't. He can see all the screens at once.
And then there's one final little check-in, a cameo appearance. Rob asks about Frank Watts.
Ah, yes. For the hardcore fans of the Seth Material, Frank Watts is a deep cut. Before Seth fully came through as a Seth, Jane made contact with a personality calling himself Frank Watts. Seth later explained that Frank was essentially a fragment of his own entity, a previous personality he had used.
So Rob asks, how's my old friend Frank Watts?
And Jane smiles, and Seth says, he is indeed quite well, thank you. Rob pushes for more details, and Seth just says, he is on his own. I will some evening say more.
He is on his own.
It's a perfect callback to the whole theme of the episode. Frank Watts was a fragment of Seth. Seth created him or used him, but now Frank is on his own. He has his own existence. He isn't just a puppet on Seth's hand.
It just reinforces that whole spooky, beautiful idea. Consciousness splits, it creates, and those creations have a life of their own, even for Seth.
Even for Seth.
So let's bring this all home. We've covered a lot of ground from Elmira in 1965 to the architecture of the soul. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into session 173?
If I had to boil it down, I'd say there are, 4 main pillars. First, the feedback loop. Your dreams are not static. They are real experiences that physically and psychologically change who you are, so don't discount them.
Second, the problem solver. Dreams are your safety valve. You have a biological and psychological need to release blocked energy. If you don't let the steam out in the dream, it might blow a gasket in your body as an illness.
Third, the inner ego. You are more than your waking self. The you that's listening right now is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a director behind the scenes, the inner ego, who sees the whole picture and bridges the gap between worlds.
And fourth, the one that's going to keep me up tonight, dream fragments. We are creators. We populate realities with conscious beings every single time we close our eyes. They are real and they are autonomous.
And finally, I guess, the actionable advice. Control. You can direct this show. Use suggestion. Use expectation. Don't be a passive victim of your dreams. Be the author. Give your inner ego a job to do tonight.
It's powerful stuff. It transforms sleep from just a necessity, something we have to get through, into a real opportunity.
An adventure, really. It's the ultimate virtual reality, and you own the code.
Before we sign off, we have to give credit where credit is due. This material comes from the Seth Material, specifically the early sessions, and it is published by New Awareness Network.
And if you want to go to the source, and we highly, highly recommend you do because we are only scratching the surface here, you need to read the books. Seth's voice is unique, and the nuance in the text is just incredible.
You can find them at sethcenter.com/early sessions. Go buy the books, support the publisher. There is absolutely nothing like reading the raw sessions for yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's it for this deep dive. I hope you're leaving with a slightly different view of what's going to happen when your head hits the pillow tonight.
It's certainly not just lights out.
No, it's lights on somewhere else.
Sweet dreams.
And remember, say hello to the fragments for us.
Hello.
They're real, and they're waiting for you. Thanks for listening.